Okay, we are going to look into open, read, write, close, and some of the functions to read and write files. All right. One of the very first function that you would use when you open a file is fopen, and it takes two parameters. All right. It takes two parameters. So when you open let's say this is a file. This is fopen. It's a function that you would call. So it needs to know what is the name of the function and the path, right? So in our case, let's say this is name of the file is input. That's a PGM. It's a picture file. And it also requires full path. Let's say you can user as a student, right? And if so you can give the entire path as a string. Okay, so this goes in here as a string. Strings always are within double quotes. And if the program is running in the same folder as the file, then you don't have to give the entire path. You can just give input.pgm. So it depends upon the path, but it's always better to give the entire path. For portability, it's very good. But anyway, and then that's the start name of the file. All right, that's the name of the file. Like it goes in, let me show you man pages, and that is in the path. Here it says path, but it's also path and the file name. Okay, not just the path. And the mode is, it's a tricky thing. Okay, now you want to open this file. How do you want to open it? It's also a string. Do you want to open the file to read? Do you want to open this file to write? Do you want to read and write, or write and read, whatever that is? In all these four cases, okay, or we can also have the append. Do you want append something to an existing file? Append means to write, basically, at the end of the file, right? So so you need to pass that in as a string. All right. So so a typical example would be, let's say here it's input.pgm, and here it could be just read. Yeah. So if you go back to our example that we did in the past, or go back to the picture puzzle that you did, if you most of you probably skipped this portion because I didn't ask you to uh, analyze that. So if you go back to the picture assignment that we did, you would see I've used fopen. The path is, it's in the same folder as my program, so I just gave the name of the file and the input as to read. So I'm reading a file called input.pgm, and those two parameters are needed for fopen, and fopen returns a pointer. What kind of pointer it is? It is a file pointer. Remember that. Okay, fopen returns a file pointer. So if you go back to the man pages are the one bible for you. Okay, that's where you get a lot of information about the libraries. So fopen is that. See, it returns file pointer. This is a totally different pointer than the integer pointer or character pointer, okay? So this file pointer is basically what it does is that when you do this run this API, it opens this file, creates an internal buffer for you, okay? It creates an internal buffer, copies the whole content into here, and it gives the FP pointing to this guy. You may think it's pointing to the actual file, but no, it's actually pointing to an internal buffer, and it kind of locks it also. Okay, okay, but it's for all practical purposes, you can assume that it has opened this file, right? I'll remove this guy also, just for space. All right, and it opens the file pointer, and this file pointer FP, it does one more tricky thing. It gives your pointer points to the beginning of the file. That's very important. This is the start of the file. This is the end of the file, right? It's called EOF, end of file. It's a constant. We saw that, right? So it's the start of the file, end of the file. So this file pointer, when it's successful, when this fopen is successful, it returns a file pointer, and the file pointer points to the beginning of the file for these functions: read, write, read plus, write plus. Okay, not for append. We'll show you that in a minute why that is so. So for all these four modes, read, write, read plus, write plus, it opens the file and gives you the file pointer pointing to the beginning of the file. Okay, go back to your, if you go back here, it says the different modes are given here. Fopen function opens the file whose name is the string pointed to by path and associates a stream with it. Okay, the argument mode, we have different modes. If you look at here, or open text file for reading, the stream is positioned, the stream in a way is a file point, is positioned at the beginning of the file. And here too, open for reading and writing, the stream is positioned to the beginning of the file. For write, you have to little be careful. Whenever you open a file with a write, truncates file to zero length. That means as soon as if the file doesn't exist, it obviously it creates, and the file length initially will be 0, or create text file for writing. The stream is positioned at the beginning of the file. Remember that, okay? For append plus, append means you want to write, right? Append means you want to write. So where do you want to write it? It'll always puts the, when you open a file with a mode A or A plus, it opens the file and gives the position of the file pointer positioned at this guy, because this is what you want to open it and write it, right? So that is the difference between, so end of file, the file pointer will be at the end of file for these two modes of operation, and the file pointer with the beginning of the file for these four kinds of operations. All right, so that is all about fopen. And if you go back to our function, we have two kinds of file. One, we have opened input.pgm with a read mode. The other one is fopen. I've given a different file pointer, fw, to open a different kind of file for writing. And if the file doesn't exist, it will create a null, or if you don't have permission to even read, it will return that, and you can print it and exit. Okay, so this is the way fopen works. Okay, and we will look into the next video how to use these file pointers to read and write. Okay, just like how you are done in arrays, and you used pointers to read this array, we are going to use file pointer to read files. Okay, they are very similar, just the type is different. Okay.